welcome to another episode of our cybersecurity awareness webinar series. Today we have a special guest speaker, somebody who is doing well in the field of cybersecurity, and also coincidentally, we went to the same uni. So it is nice to have somebody from the same university, also in the same field, speaking to us today. Good afternoon, Raliyah.
Good afternoon, Afi.
It's nice to have you today, and thank you for agreeing to join us on our webinar.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yes, before we start, just to buy a bit more time so that more people can join in, can you please share with us how you started in cybersecurity?
Okay. So my journey to cybersecurity wasn't fully intentional. Unlike most people, I didn't start out saying, "Oh, I want to do cybersecurity." It was I at the same time I wouldn't say accidental. I would just say it was based on advice. So someone advised me to go into cybersecurity, and this was the reason. I actually had a discussion about how office work is structured, 8 to 5, how you don't really have your time, how you have to be like very dedicated to the work, and you have very little time to do any other thing. And he was like, okay, why don't you go into cybersecurity? That way you can work remotely and you would have all the flexibility you need. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll take a look at it. So at that time, fortunately, I was considering doing a master's because my undergrad was in computer science. So I decided to apply to cybersecurity and I got admitted. So that was how I went into cybersecurity. And from then, it's been a whole journey. Yeah.
Interesting. So how did you get your first cybersecurity job? Did you finish your master's degree and you applied, or while you were studying, you saw some opportunities and you were able to fix yourself?
Yeah. Okay, so I saw a lot of opportunities, obviously. I applied to some, but unfortunately, I didn't get anyone. So after my master's, when I came back, I was just doing some online courses, just trying to develop myself personally because I believe I didn't have like enough skills to get started. And that's like one of the major problems in Nigeria. You hardly find entry-level jobs in cybersecurity. Like it's very, very hard to come by. So yeah, I decided to develop myself. And then in the meantime, I had some friends that were already in the field. So I was always in contact with them. And so this friend of mine had a startup in cybersecurity. It's called Cyber Plural. And he was like, okay, so I have this startup and I'd like to pitch to you just to give me your opinion if you're into cybersecurity. And I was like, okay, fine. So he told me what it was about, what they were doing and what they intended to do in the future. So I was like, oh yeah, this is a really good plan. Like I don't think there's any industry like this. Like there are a lot of cybersecurity firms, but what you're bringing is kind of very different. So I was very, very interested in the whole talk. And after that, we kept in touch. So from then, I decided to ask him if I could be part of his team. And he was like, oh yeah, sure. Like we'd like to have you as part of our team. And this is where you can fit in, this is what you can do. And I was like, okay, interesting. So let me just give it a try. And that was how I just joined Cyber Plural. So I started off in a startup.
Wow, wonderful. So can you share with us what Cyber Plural? Did I get the name of the company?
Yes, Cyber Plural.
Yes. What are you guys all about?
So basically, Cyber Plural is about cybersecurity, as the name implies. So it's basically providing cybersecurity services to firms. But what's different about cybersecurity is that most of these firms actually offer those services, but they are very expensive, and it's kind of like targeted for big companies, like big enterprises. So cybersecurity decided to look for how we can give the same services to smaller companies, how we can make cybersecurity affordable to smaller businesses and companies. So that's what we do at cybersecurity. We give you tailored cybersecurity services to fit your security needs.
Interesting. I can see some familiar names in already. So it is nice to have you guys in. Thank you for joining us once again. So I think we can move straight to your presentation now.
Okay.
You can share your screen.
You have to permit me to share the screen.
Yes, I think you can do that now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so just a minute. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I can go ahead, right?
Please go ahead.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raliyah Adamu. I introduced myself earlier, but I'll just give a brief one again. So I'm Raliyah Adamu. I'm a GRC analyst at cybersecurity, and today I'll be talking about ransomware, the new economic engine of the dark web. So I'm sure a lot of us have actually heard of the word ransomware, probably from social media, from the news, or some of us might even have maybe friends or organizations that have been attacked by ransomware. Well, in case you haven't, ransomware is a software that denies access to systems unless a ransom is paid. So that's what a ransomware is. Basically, this denial of access is done by encrypting the whole content of the system. So an attacker encrypts your system, and unless you pay a certain ransom, they wouldn't decrypt it for you. So after paying the ransom, they give you the decryption key, and then you have access to your system again. That's what your ransomware is. So for a lot of people, it's just now they're really getting to know about ransomware, but the truth is it's been in existence for a very, very long time, for as long as like 1989. So the first ransomware variant was 8 Trojan, and this ransomware was released via a floppy disk. Now, I'm not sure how many of us really got to use floppy disks. I didn't anyway, but that's just to tell you it's been a very, very long time. And after that, we didn't have a lot of variants because, well, people didn't really know what it was. It wasn't really doing anything. There was no major impact and all that. But around 2013, new variants of ransomware started coming up. And that's when we had the crypto locker. So crypto locker happened between September 2013 and May 2014. It used a Trojan that targeted computers mainly running Microsoft Windows. Then we had the Tesla script in 2015. This one targeted gameplay data for specific computer scripts. So after 2015, there were more variants. It kept increasing all the way to the more recent Guncraft, Ryok, Maze, and the last one, so the Notibi. So that's the very popular Revil. I'm sure a lot of us might have heard of Revil. So it's the same thing as Sodino TV.
Now, because, speak on
like I said,
WannaCry? It's made a lot of people cry that year.
Yeah. I have that right here. Like it was. So like I said earlier, the ransomware attacks were not very significant back then because it probably didn't have a lot of impact. So around 2013, when Crypto Locker came on and it had quite an impact, then 2015, there was Crypto Wall that accounted for approximately $325 million in damages in 2015. That was like a lot of money. And this particular ransomware spread via phishing email. So I'll talk about that in later slides. Then we have the very popular WannaCry that happened in 2017. This one was like a very, very significant ransomware event. And that was because it affected a lot of companies. And not just that, most of the previous attacks were like in a specified region, probably South America or maybe in USA. It didn't really spread to other parts of the world. But in 2017, when WannaCry happened, it affected 150 different countries. And you would think that was in a long time. It was that all of that happened in just 4 days. So you can imagine what impact it could have had if it actually took longer than 4 days. And what the attackers used in this event was that so Microsoft had this vulnerability in their OS that they released a patch for, but a lot of companies didn't actually make those updates. So they still had the same version that had the same vulnerability. And some of them were even using systems that were already outdated that they couldn't update that OS on. So the attackers exploited that vulnerability and launched the attack. So the only way Microsoft could stop it was that they had to release another emergency update that had a kill switch that prevented the already infected systems from further spreading that ransomware. So this event actually, like I said, it had $4 billion in losses across the globe, and it affected over 300,000 computers. That was a very big event in the history of ransomware. So after telling you all of the impacts that ransomware could have or that it has had, you would actually begin to think, oh, this thing must be pretty hard to actually carry out. You must be like a very expert, like you must have a lot of expertise in that field for you to actually deploy a ransomware. Almost very expensive to get or very hard to get. Well, unfortunately, the reverse is the case, because looking at this excerpt from the Darkweb that says, you always wanted a ransomware, but never wanted to pay hundreds of dollars for it. This list is for you. Tampado is a cheap and easy to manage ransomware developed by me and my team. It's meant to be really easy to use. You not need a host. Please note that you will need a host. All you will need is an email account. So looking at this, you can see that even a script kiddie can actually get hold of a ransomware and deploy it. So it is not hard at all to get a ransomware. And that should like make us all very security conscious. Like it should give you some, it should kind of make you terrified, knowing that this is actually very easy to do and ransomware is like easy to get on the dark web. So that should get you worried. Please, as I go on, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat box so that at the end I'll look at the questions. So if you have any questions along the line, just feel free to drop it in the chat box. So ransomware as a business, and this is like the main topic for today, ransomware as the engine of the dark web. A research in 2020 April says that darknet markets make malware buying easy. So all you have to do is basically just get access to the darknet and you can get a malware. The previous Tampado ransomware that I talked about, as you can see, costs just $39. That is like way cheap for a ransomware, for the amount of impact that it could cost, for the amount of money you get from it. That's like very, very cheap. So this visualization now, okay, before I explain this, so just like every other business, ransomware is also a business. It's a whole industry on its own. And just like every business, when you start and people see that you're making profits, you're bound to have competitors. You're bound to have other people try to make the same kind of product that you have. So it's the same thing that happened in the ransomware industry. From the 2013 all the way up till now, we've had like new variants of ransomware. As you can see, we've had Conti, Nephilim, Abaddon, Lockheed, Shiba, and the rest. Like there are so many variants of ransomware, and this is because it has become a whole industry on its own. It's now a whole business. This other one by the side shows that 26 victims of a certain ransomware attack were in the mining, oil, and gas industry. So you can see the name of the companies here that were attacked, and you can see the variants of ransomware that they were used to attack them. This visualization now shows the most popular variants of ransomware and the number of organizations that they have attacked. You can see that Conti has attacked 282 organizations. Like that's a lot, because we're not talking about small organizations here. These organizations are mostly like very big organizations, in fact, international organizations. So 282, Maze has attacked 266, Egregor 206. With this now, you can imagine the amount of impact that these ransomware would have caused. You can imagine the number of systems that they must have attacked. in their events. So now talking about the industry that ransomware mostly targets. Just like every business, you go where the money is. When you have a business, you go to where you sell most, right? You're always looking for the best market to make the most sales. So it's the same thing around somewhere. They're always looking for like where they will make the most money. So looking at this trend now, looking at the trend of industries in this visualization, you can see that government has 15.4%. So 15.4% of attacks are targeted towards government. Then we have 13.9% in manufacturing, all the way down to the less rich organizations. Let me put it that way. You come down to education with just 5%, real estate is 7.5%, and then individuals. So now I've talked about evolution of ransomware. I've talked about the variants of ransomware. Now I'll be talking about how these attackers go on to carry out the ransomware attacks. So that's the different methods that they use to carry out their ransomware attacks. The first one here, we have file download or email with malicious link. So in this type of attack, the attacker just sends an email with a malicious link in it, and he attaches a file that says you need to download it. And once you click, that file is usually an executable file. So once you click it, the attack happens. Then this one, we have the remote attack on server. In this case, it's mostly like a targeted attack, because the aim of this type of attack is mainly to get your data. Well, they care about the money, obviously, but they want more. They need your data. They need to get access to your data. Either to resell it, because there's something we call double profit. So they hit you with a ransomware. On a normal case, once you pay, then they give you access back to your systems and they don't take your data. But in this case, even after paying your ransomware, they'll go ahead and sell all of your data on the dark web. And it happens a lot these days. We have the email with malicious attachments, accounting for 25% of the types of deployment methods. So in this one, it's quite similar to the file download with email malicious links. Just that the difference here is that instead of them telling you to download, they just tell you, oh, there's an attachment here. All they need is for you to click it. So once you click, it also executes the same way just as in the file download. And here we have misconfigured cloud instance. So the catch here is that a lot of industries are like moving to cloud. They're either outsourcing cloud services, or they're using cloud-based software and stuff like that. So here, the attacker would just be waiting for you to have one slight misconfiguration on your cloud instance. And that becomes a vulnerability that they can exploit like anytime. So when you use cloud instances, you have to be very careful with your configuration. Next, we have here the removable media device. So here it's mainly for the organizations that don't have policies, security policies around the use of removable media. So you can just come with any removable media and plug it into a system. So in that case, an attacker can do the same thing. And once they plug that removable media, it executes the file. Then we have the third party of suppliers that works for organizations. So some organizations might think, oh, we've implemented all the security policies, we have all the controls in place, so we shouldn't worry about security. But sometimes if you have a third organization that you're probably in business with, or you're outsourcing some of their services, you have to also be careful of their own security practices. You have to be very mindful. You have to be sure that they are enforcing the same security, not necessarily the same, but they are enforcing all of the security practices that they need in their own organization. Now, let me give you a good example of this one. So recently, there's the Apple Quanta saga that happened not long ago. I don't know if some of you have heard of this. So Quanta is a Taiwan-based tech company, and they make hardware for Apple, mainly MacBooks actually. And recently, Quanta was hit by ransomware. So what these attackers did, just like I told you earlier, that they might not just want the ransom, they also want to use your data against you. So they said it's either they pay them the ransom or they go ahead to release blueprints of the MacBook that Apple was supposed to release this year. So you see, Apple wasn't attacked directly, it was attacked indirectly, but somehow its data was they still got hold of Apple's data through a third-party organization. So when you outsource services or you have third parties that you're doing business with, you also have to be very sure of their security mechanisms. So now, I'll be taking you through how these attackers go ahead to carry out an attack using one of the methods I explained previously. So when they want to carry out an attack, it usually goes through 3 phases: the delivery, the exploitation, and then the action on objectives. So the first phase is usually the delivery phase. This is where the attacker attempts to just deliver the package to you. So let's say we're using the instance of the email with a malicious link. So here you can see that the attacker sends a spam email. And having a spam filter is not just enough, because these attackers knew that people have spam filters. So they would write the message, the email, in such a way that it would bypass that spam filter and then hit your inbox. So once it's in your inbox, they have delivered the ransomware to you. Now we move to phase 2. Here, as an unsuspecting user, you get a mail in your inbox, and then you click on the malicious link. Again, your antivirus fails because they know how they make up all those links to evade all of your security mechanisms. So you click on the link, and it immediately executes the file. Once the execution is done, it connects with the server of the attacker, and then encryption happens. So that is exploitation. Your system has been exploited. They have delivered the ransomware, and they have successfully exploited your system. Then we move on to phase 3. Once it connects with the attacker's CNC server, it delivers a ransomware, the notes that the attacker had kept for you. So they usually leave notes. Some of them can be very funny, like some of them are just plain notes. So whatever notes the attacker has left for you is what your screen will display, and that's the only message you'll be able to see on your system. Every other thing on your system becomes encrypted. So for enterprise networks, for a standalone system, actually, this would be the end when the ransom note is delivered. But for systems in enterprise networks, the attacker would still attempt, because he knows you're in a network. So he's going to try to move on to the next system in that network. And when you're in the same network, it's very easy for them to move from one system to the other, and they end up infecting all the other systems in that network. So this is an example of the kind of messages, the funny messages that you can leave on your system. We have your file, send Bitcoin, or else your file's going to trash. Well, this used to be the case, but presently there have been cases of, if you don't send the Bitcoin, you sell your data. Like, that's what they mostly do these days. So it's a double game for them either way. This one is another one from a software company in Lagos. They also had their website attacked by ransomware, and those attackers asked for about 300,000 naira in Bitcoin. So they either send the money or they lose their website. So global losses now in 2020, yeah, that was last year. Global losses last year from ransomware amounted to about $20 billion. That's like a whole lot of money. But that's not the interesting part. If you look at this trend of the years and the amount of money in damages, you see that in 2018 it was just $8 billion. Well, not just, but yeah, $8 billion. 2019, it became 11.5, and that's like, it doubled, right? 2020, the same thing, it moved to 20 billion. So by the end of this year, we're probably looking at those damages reaching or going beyond $40 billion. That's a whole lot of money, and that's why you need to take security seriously. So now I'll be taking you through how you can minimize the risk of being held hostage. And after this part, I'll tell you how cybersecurity can come in to help you with implementing some of the security mechanisms. So the first thing is that in every security setting, you have to have this mindset of, I will be attacked, like I will be hit. I'm not 100% secure, because no system is actually ever 100% secure. You have to always have that mindset, and having that mindset would let you, it will make you proactive. So you'd always put security mechanisms in place for when the attack happens. 2, invest in anti-ransomware technology to prevent unauthorized entry. This one now, a lot of to try and invest in some of these anti-ransomware technology. They're expensive, but when you look at the cost, what you're going to like pay, or what you're going to have to spend in order to regain your data or reduce your downtime and all of that, is actually way more than what you invest in preventing this attack. So you protect your data wherever it is held. So this simply means that whether your data is in transit or it's in storage or it's in another organization or it's somewhere else being stored offline, you have to be sure that you always protect your data all the time. Then we have 4, make regular backups and store offsite and offline. So backups are very, very important. In a case where you manage to decrypt your systems, you wouldn't have to pay those attackers to get back your files. So you have a backup already on your system and you can just back up and carry on. Ensure your cybersecurity, your cyber insurance covers ransomware. So a lot of organizations actually have insurance, but most of the insurance just covers like physical damage, probably environmental damages and stuff like that. They never really consider ransomware. And looking at the cost of ransomware, it's not something you should joke with. So you should try to include ransomware in your insurance plan. Then the last one here is deploy a layered defense. Now for this one, I'll be using the next slide to explain it because it's quite like robust. So a layered defense, now let me use this example to explain to you what a layered defense really is. So let's assume we have this house that has like 6 doors and somewhere the living room is after the 6th door and that's where you have your valuable items. So you're trying to protect these items from thieves probably. Well, in this case, from ransomware attackers, right? So you're trying to prevent them from gaining access to those valuable items. So what you now do is that you put a lock, you put a lock on the first door, probably a padlock or a key lock, or maybe even a biometric lock. So you install that on the first door and you think, oh, my building should be very secure now. They can't have access to the first door, so I don't need to lock the rest of the doors. I'll just leave them open. But what happens in a case where they actually break the first door? So the rest of the doors are just like easy access. They go through without even having to pull down anything. So that's where layered defense comes in. Layered defense means that for every of those 6 doors, you implement a different kind of security implementation on it. So it means for the first door, if you have a padlock, the second door, you should have a key lock. The third door, you should have a biometric lock, and going on like that, on all the way onto the 6th door. So if they're able to break the first door, they might not be able to break the second door. They might not be able to break the third door. So it improves your chances. It gives you a higher stance when it comes to security, and it reduces your risk of being attacked because they might not be able to break all the way to the 6th door. So that's what layered defense means. It means secure your endpoints, your servers, your public cloud instances, your email, your network gateway, and your supply chain. So everything in your network is secured. You don't just put one security mechanism stay on your you just have a firewall and then that's it, security is gone. That's not how it works. So at this point, yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, please be dropping them in the chat box. I'll have a look at the end of the presentation. So now bringing cyber plural into the picture. Earlier on, I had given a brief about cyber plural and what we do, but for those who were not there when I did, this at cyber plural, we provide security services to small and big businesses. So we try to tailor our services to your specific security needs. We can do cybersecurity strategy. So we have a strategy and then we try to implement these controls for you. We establish user guidelines and best practices for you. We create procedures to handle these incidents in the situation that they happen. And we host regular employee cybersecurity training session. And the fourth one is actually very important. Like you always have to keep your employees aware of current cyber threats that are happening. So you might be wondering, oh, how do we go about this? So this is how we do it at Cyber Plural. We have an engagement stage. So this is where we get to know you, know the kind of business that you do, the kind of clients that you deal with, the kind of information that you have. And then we try to draft a plan that is tailored towards those needs for you. That is the engagement phase. And then we have the onboarding phase. In this phase now, after this plan, we try to implement them for you. We implement those plans for you and put all of the necessary security controls in place for you. Then we have the third phase, which is the consolidation phase. So here, it's not just that after the engagement and the onboarding phase, we don't just leave you there. We actually go ahead to carry out routine assessments and give you reports of those assessments. We go ahead to do cyber awareness for your employees. We have our team ready for incident handling in the case where an incident occurs, and we continuously monitor your systems for you. So we can give you all of these services at Cyber Plural. So having said this now, this is what we do at Cyber Plural. having said this and having told you the impact of ransomware, and I've told you how you can protect yourself, I've told you the mechanisms that you can put in place. But the truth is that you don't have to implement everything that I've recommended in this guide. It's just prescriptive. It's just, okay, these are the things that you can do. But obviously in real life, you can't actually do all of those things. But doing even some of it can help you to control and reduce the attack surface that is available to ransomware. And if you're able to do even, let's say, 2 or 3 of those mechanisms, you're able to put them in place, that on its own is a huge win. At least we are doing something to stop these bad guys from getting to us. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll be checking to see if anyone drops any questions now.
No questions yet. So
okay.
During the course of your presentation, you talked about having a structured layer of security. What is the difference between having a structured layer and zero trust approach?
Okay. So having a trusted layer, like I explained earlier, is that you have different security mechanisms in place. So it's not just you relying on one security mechanism and saying, this is enough to secure everything. So you make sure you put security mechanisms on every attack surface. So for instance, now your email is an attack surface. Your cloud instance is an attack surface. Your network is an attack surface. Your endpoints are attack surfaces. So you make sure you implement different security mechanisms for all of these end surfaces, because we have different types of security mechanisms that actually fit into all of these surfaces. So you try to implement them to reduce the impact, or to reduce the surface. So when you, let's say, okay, you secure 4 now out of the 5 surfaces you have, at least you have just 1 left, right? So it reduces the chances of this ransomware getting to you compared to when you have zero trust approach. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Okay, guys, so please send in your questions for Raliyah to answer. Let me see. Okay, this is not a question, but I still want you to address it. From Wales Williams. I'm interested in cybersecurity, but don't even know where to start. Where or how do I get into this field?
Okay, so if you're interested in cybersecurity and you don't know where to start, a starting point would be, I would recommend connecting with people in that field. Connect with people in the field. So social media now has made it like very easy for you to have access to people. You can go on Twitter, you can go on LinkedIn and search for people in cybersecurity. And when we talk about cybersecurity, people need to understand that there are different fields actually in cybersecurity. It's not just, oh, I'm into cybersecurity. You have to be doing something specific in that cybersecurity. So try to connect with people that are doing those things and try to see, because most of them, like on Twitter now, there's like this whole community. Just last week, there was this Twitter space that was talking about getting started in InfoSec. And there are a lot of cybersecurity professionals there that were dropping gems, like dropping materials, dropping things that you can do, dropping like pathways and all of that. So when you follow all of these people, you have access to more information. And along the line, you try to pick out what exactly it is that you want to do. You get materials that you can actually leverage on to learn new skills and things like that. So I would highly recommend networking with people in that field.
Okay, so Williams, try to improve your networking skills.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Sulaiman Mukhtar. What is the next move after detecting you must have probably been hit by ransomware? Okay, yeah. So you've explained ransomware, what it's about, how it's deployed, the tech behind it. So what do you do when you get hit?
Okay, so like I explained, you followed the slides up to the end. When I came to Cyber Plural, I told you that we have an incident response plan. We can do that for you. So that incident response plan now is a list of, it's like a plan that you have to follow when you are hit by a ransomware. So it would involve things like, where you have to first of all identify where you were hit. You have to identify how it happened. You have to identify how, like, if it affected one system in the enterprise network, can it move further? Can it infect other systems? Then you have this recovery plan that you must have put in place prior to that happening. So at Cyber Plural, where we actually do that assessment for you, we come up with this incident response plan specifically for your organization, depending on your assets and all of the devices that you have. We come up with that plan and how to implement that plan once you have been hit by a ransomware. So Sulaiman, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. But just to add, when you get hit by any form of ransomware or attack, I think the first thing to do is to isolate that infected system. Before you call anybody or do anything, make sure that system is off the network and that ransomware can move from that system to another setup. So that is that. No other questions. Guys, send in your questions. Raliyah is ready. She's ready for us.
Yeah, send in your questions. I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, Rotimi Williams is just saying, nice presentation. Okay, so Raliyah, are we getting the slide after now?
Okay, so yeah, we can actually send the slides to you if you would like. You can do that.
Yes, a couple of people are requesting for that.
Okay, no problem.
So what's your experience as a female in cybersecurity in Nigeria? What has the experience been like?
Well, for someone who is just starting out, I would say it's been interesting, really, because, well, some people, when you tell them, okay, what do you do? And you say you're a cybersecurity analyst, probably they're like, okay, you're a lady. Okay, what are you doing in that field? You know, you get this stern look, or some of them give you that, you must be very intelligent, like you're in cybersecurity. Wow, okay. So I would say it's been interesting, really. Like people it brings that awareness to people, because when they ask you, oh, what do you do, and you tell them, and you go ahead to tell them, oh, this is the reason why you're doing this. So you're actually creating awareness, and yeah, that's about it. So I'm just starting out too, so I don't really have a lot of experiences to share regarding working in the field as a senior, but yeah, you always get that feeling like, oh, okay, wow, you're a senior in cybersecurity, because there aren't a lot of us actually in Nigeria, especially.
Yes, right. So going back to ransomware, is it that we don't experience ransomware attacks in Nigeria, or because the reports don't come out?
I'd say in Nigeria, well, it's that the reports don't come out. So, for instance, in other countries, yeah, you have these regulations around data privacy, and that kind of covers when you have an attack, you're held liable to actually go out and inform all of the people that you have, like all of your customers, all of your clients. You have to tell them that there was an attack, and you have to tell them the extent of that attack. You have to tell them if their data was breached and anything like that. Otherwise, you'll be fined. But in Nigeria, well, we probably have those laws in place, but you know how Nigeria is. They are there, but they are not being implemented. Nobody is working on ensuring that those laws are implemented. So people don't take it seriously. People have breaches, and in fact, when there's even a data breach in Nigeria, the first thing companies do these days is to come out and deny it. And why are they doing that? Is because they know that they won't be held accountable. That's why they do that. So it's not that we don't have those laws, it's that people don't report them, and they don't report them because they know that there's no accountability. They're not going to be fined or anything like that.
Okay, so what has to change for us to get to the stage where companies are willing to come out when they suffer data breach or when they get hacked?
Well, that has a lot to do with those regulations. I would say it has a lot to do with those in charge of those regulations. So they have to ensure that they are enforcing these regulations on companies. They have to actually keep track and be aware of things that are happening. For instance, now there's a breach at XYZ organization. If they don't come out to report, why not go ahead and ask them? Why not go ahead and investigate that situation? And if it was really found to happen, then you go ahead and find them. When you make like an example out of people, they are bound to actually comply better with regulations. So they have to put in that work to ensure that these laws are enforced.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you think about having local tools, local contents, local cybersecurity techs to solve our local issues? We can't keep outsourcing all our headaches to people abroad.
Well, that one is like I would say it's complicated because it's not that we don't really have the expertise in Nigeria. I'd say one of the problems is funding, because these organizations, let's kind of liken that to a situation to how organizations employ cybersecurity professionals. So it's kind of the same thing, like people are there that have these qualifications, but these organizations are not willing to employ a lot of people in that. So they're just like, oh, one person should be able to handle this, so take all of it. And they don't employ the rest. So it's kind of the same thing, like there are people with the expertise, there are people that can actually do that, but I think they don't have the space to actually do things like that. That's what I think.
Well, I think you're right, but maybe we just need to also look inwards. So,
yeah, we need to at some point, obviously, we need to.
Yes. Okay, another question from Sulaiman Mukhtar. As a GRC specialist, do you think it's necessary for laws to be enacted on those companies who deny cyber attacks? Risk not, I'm struggling to get what he has typed.
Okay.
Who deny cyber attacks, risking not only their data, but also their customers' data.
Yes, I think I mentioned this earlier. I said that companies need to be fined. They need to be held accountable for their actions. So in a case where there's an attack and companies go ahead to deny, they should be held accountable. There should be like fines that they have to pay for doing that because they are endangering people's lives. Let's say now there was a data breach and people's data was stolen. We actually inform these people and tell them, oh, this is what was lost. This is what you can do. Okay, change your passwords. Okay, change your this, change your that. It can actually like lessen the damage that it would cause. But in the case where you now go ahead to deny it and say it didn't happen, but then people are actually suffering the consequences when it's meant to be you taking liability for what happened. It's not good.
Right.
So these organizations really need to be fined when they do things like that.
Well, we have a policy from NITSDA. Is that not effective, or what is happening?
Yeah, like I said, these policies are in place, but they're not implementing them. Nobody is there to say, oh, let's enforce them on organizations. Because when it comes to security, you have to enforce these things. People don't just, for instance, now, at Cyber Plural, we talk to people about, enforcing security and this, but they're not really willing to, unless you kind of show them the extent of damage it could cause to them, or unless something similar has maybe happened to them in the past and they know what it feels like. So unless there's something attached to it, you don't just tell people, oh, do X, Y, Z, and then they go ahead to do X, especially when they know it's going to cost them. And they know that even after doing it, they don't acknowledge whether they did it or not. Then why should I even do it in the first place? So yeah, that's how it works. You have to make sure you enforce these laws. People won't just do them if you don't.
Right. So, what do you have to say to young ladies like yourself looking to get into cybersecurity?
Well, the first thing about cybersecurity for me, I think is if you have the passion, then you can actually do it. It's not difficult. It's just like every other field. Put in the hard work, make the right connections. In this field, I've been emphasizing on networking because in this period, it is what gets you to the top. Like you can be in cybersecurity and maybe you're just doing one thing and you're not within the network and you miss out on a lot of opportunities. So it's like we are all connected because it's not a very big community. So almost everybody knows everybody. Like if you're really in that space, you get to know people. So just put yourself out there. Networking is very important if you're starting out in cybersecurity. And just put in the hard work and I believe you'd excel.
Yeah, you know people put in the hard work and you'd excel.
Yeah.
So I think no more questions from me. Any questions, more questions before we round up for today? So what do you think is the biggest cyber threat facing Nigeria, or let me say Africa as a whole?
Well, yeah, if you say Nigeria or Africa as a whole, I would say the biggest cyber threat is fraud, like cyber fraud, because that's something that happens and it's so underreported that it keeps happening. Like this is something that if the reports were probably really, if people were really reporting it and they were taking steps to actually work towards curbing it, we should be over this by now. But unfortunately, this is something that keeps happening and happening and happening. And I think it's mainly because there isn't a lot of education or awareness around this event. So it's a very big cyber threat. Like people need to know how that works. They need to know that it's happening and it could happen to them. They need to know what kind of data they are putting out there because obviously this is like a targeted attack that works with social engineering. So it's what you're giving them that they're using against you. So if you're not putting what they need out there, then it reduces their chances of getting to you. So yeah, for Africa, I would say that's the biggest threat right now.
Right, right. So for somebody that works in uh, cybersecurity and also you've gone out of the country,
Yeah.
I'm sure you must have felt the firsthand the effects of our local fraud, Yahoo Yahoo. How does it feel like being, known as a Nigerian and also knowing what your countrymen and women are known for on the internet when
Okay.
you're working in that field?
Yeah, so I'll tell you this, right? When I went to school and I got to meet people like from different countries and all of that, and you're like, oh, what country are you from? And I'm like, Nigeria. The impression is usually like, no way. Like you don't act like a Nigerian. And I'm like, okay, how do Nigerians act? And the first thing is they tell you that, oh, Nigerians are usually these very loud people and they always want to be in charge, they're this, they're that. So some of them actually, they wouldn't directly tell you that, oh, Nigeria is where you have all these Yahoo boys, but yeah, they kind of imply it in some way, but they wouldn't tell you directly. So I didn't really have to deal with that. But yeah, the fact about, oh, you're Nigerian and you're different, okay? Nigerians are usually loud, they're usually this. Yeah, I got that a lot from people.
Okay, so what do you think we can do about it? The fraud pandemic. Yeah.
Well, what I would say is that for that, my personal opinion is that these people actually have, if Nigerians have that skill with the kind of education that we get, because I mean, it's okay, in the abroad now, like for you to have those skills, you probably have to do some training. Like you hardly meet people that didn't even go to school having this kind of skills. But in Nigeria, it's very easy to find them. Like you find Yahoo boys that didn't even go to school and they have these skills. So why can't the government leverage on these skills for something better? Because you're saying you're trying to stop them, you're trying to put in future. It doesn't stop them. Like unless you give them something else to do, you can't stop them from what they are doing. So why wouldn't the government like leverage on these skills for something better, like open like training camps that these people can actually go to and do something meaningful with their life, since they have these skills, they have that passion for cybersecurity, because basically it has everything to do with cybersecurity. So why not train them and actually give them something meaningful to do? That way you reduce the amount of Yahoo boys you have.
Yeah, so what you're saying is to offer them some sort of amnesty and say, okay, guys, we are no more arresting you. We just want to retrain you for you to be better citizens.
Yeah, in a way, because I mean, arresting them, we've been arresting them for a long time, but it doesn't stop them, because for most people, what pushes them to doing that is lack of lack of jobs, lack of proper education, and things like that. So if the government actually provides all of those things, I just feel like naturally there would be less Yahoo boys. Like it would naturally happen because people have better things to do. They know how to leverage those skills better. Yeah. So yes, I believe if they put in these kind of measures, it would reduce it. Because arresting them, honestly, you would keep arresting them, but they keep increasing. So
it has not solved anything.
Obviously, yeah, exactly. It's obviously not making any difference, because if it was, they'd have finished arresting them by now.
Yes, right. So I think this is where we call it a day for today. Thank you so much once again, Raliyah, for joining us. This session has been great. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the attendees also must have learned one or two things from your presentation. Thank you to
thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you also to all the attendees for taking our time to join us. Most of our attendees are young professionals or people already in the IT field looking to cross into cybersecurity. So the sessions are always useful for them. Also, thank you to the organizers of the webinar, that is Comercio Limited. Comercio Limited is an IT solutions company into hardware and software, cybersecurity, and cloud. So feel free to reach out to us, to reach out to me for all your IT needs, and I can assure you that we have competent hands on deck willing to assist with whatever your request is. Also, feel free to like any of our social media pages, YouTube page. There we have our past webinar recordings. You can go through the sessions, very insightful. We've had speakers from banks, CISOs of banks, professors, consultants, people with years and years of experience in the cybersecurity field. So once again, go to all our pages. And also, if you go to our Facebook page, it is possible for you to get some free content, either to help in your cybersecurity journey or just for you to take the next step. Once again, thank you. Okay, somebody is saying, hope to meet our host and panelists one day. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Seriously.
So, Raliyah, are you in Lagos or Abuja?
I'm in Abuja.
Okay. So, Rosimi, good luck. So, I think this is where we call it a day today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. Have a nice day.
You're welcome. So I'm going to reach out to you for the slides, and we'll also discuss further from there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, goodbye. Bye.
Bye.